Hello, wildlings. I'm your Creepsmith, and you found my Fear Forge. Lucky you. Welcome back, wildlings. Today's instructional insanity: how to talk to yourself. The first thing you should know about me is that I'm very faint of heart. There's this pamphlet that I've been reading for a while now. I remember coming across it a while ago, when I was a child, at the doctor's office, the waiting room, getting a physical. The year was 2002. I was born in 1996. That's when I saw it. In among the other celebrity or glamour magazines, it peeked out with one single little boring gray corner. It was almost like it was looking at me. I picked it up and read the title, How to Talk to Yourself. Author listed as Roger Harrison. There was no graphic, just the white background and the Arial font reading the title and the author. And to this day, I've never been able to find out who this mysterious Roger Harrison was. I've spent countless hours on the internet browsing for anyone who remotely matched my query. Anyway, last week I found a tattered piece of paper plastered to a sewer grate, colors running from recent rain. I picked it up and I read the title. It was the very same pamphlet from my childhood, the one I remember so very clearly on that day in the waiting room, How to Talk to Yourself. So I quickly stuffed it in my bag. I could feel the hairs on the back of my neck standing up, that feeling you get when you're being watched. I was in a crowded square in the middle of a city. Surely that was a coincidence, right? I continued home, attempting to forget the pamphlet that was lying in my bag. Perhaps I'd save it as a bit of memorabilia, or maybe I'd trash it. I was walking a little faster now, on a sidewalk near the outskirts of the city I live in. It's a small, yellowing apartment in what you could call the fringes of the city. The building was gray and covered in ivy. So I arrived home, slid my key into the lock, and opened the door with a creak. And I felt a sudden urge to read the pamphlet, so I just brushed it off. With every step I took up the stairs, I could feel the sensation building more and more and more until I eventually couldn't take it anymore and broke into a sprint to my apartment. I opened the door, took off my backpack, and grabbed out the pamphlet. The feeling of being watched had gone away now, being safe in my own home. My neighbors were playing loud music above me in the room, but the urge to read the pamphlet remained. I simply figured that my curiosity must have been getting the better of me. I put it down, almost reconsidering my decision. But instead, I decided to leave it on the kitchen table. Went to the bedroom, slid under my covers. This was about 13 minutes to 11, 10:47, as I drifted off into deep sleep. That night, I had a strange dream. I was in a large field. The sky was gray and the grass was yellow and very tall. I felt cold. The surroundings were desolate and foreboding. And as I looked around, I realized that this dream was incredibly vivid to most of the other dreams I have. As my eyes scanned the horizon, I spotted something in the corner of my eye, almost undistinguishable. But yet I could see the movement from afar. In the distance, I could see someone. They were entirely draped in a sickly shade of green, and whoever it might have been, they were twitching almost uncontrollably. I attempted to move toward them, but it felt like my feet were stuck in something soft and something warm. Gelatin? Vaseline? I heard a rustling behind me, a twig snapping. I whipped around and the dream went to black. The rest of the night I didn't dream at all, and I woke up shivering, feeling strange. I brushed it off as a side effect of the odd dream. So I got up, dressed, brushed my teeth, and I looked in the mirror. I was paler than I've ever been. It looked as though all my blood had been drained from my body, leaving only the whitest skin I'd ever had. Walked into the kitchen, and there I saw it, again. The gray paper with its running colors, still looking at me. And I suddenly felt very cold. That same cold from the dream. I don't mind admitting I was intimidated. I was intimidated by a piece of paper. I don't know why, it just seemed so ominous and strange. I'd never felt this way about a simple pamphlet. I decided I needed to get past all this, so I picked it up. But as I touched the pamphlet, I noticed it was ice cold. I opened it and read. You have a special someone who lives in your lungs. They like you, but they're shy. They only come out when you're alone. Here is how to talk to them. Step 1. Breathe deeply. Say hi. You're not afraid, are you? They like you. You don't have to be afraid. You won't hurt, I promise. We're smiling at you. Okay, I was confused. Say hi to the person in my lungs. Why are they living in my lungs? And I won't hurt? Who's smiling at me? And then I noticed it was silent. Completely silent. I decided to do as the pamphlet said, so I took a deep breath and said hi softly. Nothing happened. I decided to put the pamphlet away and save the rest of the reading for after work. So I ended up walking to work that day. My coworkers were quiet as they usually are, but instead of the typing at computers or movement of machines, there was nothing. It was absolute dead silence. The kind of silence that makes you go mad. It was deafening. I hastily finished my work and left the building to get a cup of coffee. Going home, I arrived in about an hour. It was now 9:24. The pamphlet lay open on the table, tempting me to continue reading it. I gave in to my temptations and picked it up and read. Step 2. Be cold. Don't go to sleep, not yet. They want to see your eyes. Take 1 tablespoon of the oil, eat it, shut your eyes. Don't yell, don't scream, don't. The rest of this section was undecipherable. The ink that it was written in had been smudged, soaked through. This second section, as expected, was equally strange as, if not stranger than, the first section. Questions ran through my mind. The oil? What oil was the pamphlet talking about? This was the part that confused me the most, alongside the part that had been smudged by the rain. I expected that it would be some sort of oil you'd brew with a recipe for it. I had no idea where to start looking for that. Perhaps there was an explanation in the next step. So I continued reading. Step 3. Happy, 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 happy. Be happy. Start talking. Say how you are. You want to make them happy. You are happy. We like to happy with you. As I thought, there wasn't any inkling as to what the oil could be. It seemed that the author, whoever he or she was losing his sanity at this point. This almost chilling obsession with happiness was starting to freak me out, and I closed the pamphlet and headed upstairs to my bedroom. I got underneath the covers, and my head hit the pillow. I had the same dream as the last night. The only difference was that the man in green had come closer. He was much, much closer. I woke up promptly in a cold sweat at 3:27 a.m. and couldn't bring myself to go back to sleep. I had the sudden urge to go downstairs and continue reading. I saw the pamphlet on the table, but something was off. Everything on my desk was usually very organized, but I saw a small envelope on my desk that hadn't been there before. Curious and a little paranoid, I rushed over there and ripped it open. Inside was a napkin with a crude smiley face drawn hastily onto it. I remember specifically at this point the gravity of my situation. I had no recollection of making this note. There were no signs of a break-in as far as I could tell. My heart began to beat faster and faster as I went over to the pamphlet. I opened it, and in the first 3 steps there was the same crude smiley face scribbled all over. I caught my breath and held it for a moment before breathing out with a wheeze. I was, at this point, terrified. The questions rushed through my head. Who the fuck was this man in green? And more importantly, how did all these smileys get into my apartment? Nevertheless, I began reading the 4th step. Step 4. Do you see them? Look. I was beyond scared at this point. Look at what? I was confused, terrified of the monstrosity that I'd brought into my home. Hands shaking, I read the next step. There only had to be a few left, right? Step 5. They'll say hi. You've made a friend. You are not alone. You will never be alone. My main question at this point was, who would say hi? There was nobody inside my apartment besides myself as far as I knew. My heart was beating at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Fumbling with the pages, I turned to the next and apparently final step, which was not really a step but more of a statement. Final step. You are now never without your happy friend in your lung. You can sleep now, without waking up. This author's obsession with happiness was almost cruel to the reader. It was haunting in the way whoever wrote this put it. Somehow, my heart kept beating faster and faster, and I felt woozy. I was confused and terrified and alone. The last thing I remember before blacking out was a raspy breathing behind me. I woke up, somehow in my bed, somehow 2 days later. I was immediately confused. Had this all been a dream? The pamphlet was nowhere in sight. The paper with the smiley face was nowhere. I walked down the stairs to the kitchen, and my eyes lit upon it. It had been real. My heart sank. I looked out the window and noticed the sun was setting. Rubbing my bleary eyes, I picked up the paper and turned it over to read the back. Scrawled on the back of the pamphlet was the following: "Never alone, never alone, never alone. They're here. Never alone. I don't like this. I'm not alone. I'm never alone. I like you. I like you. I can see you, you little friend. I want to touch you. Now, let me see you. I like you. I'm gonna feel all of your little insides. My very special friend." Underneath the inscription, there was another smiley face. And from behind me, I heard, in a raspy, shallow voice, "Hi." Yeah, the sad thing here is that actually kind of reminds me of, what do you call them? Chick tracts. Anyway, stay scary, my wildlings. Make the most of your nights.